African religions, in Christianity, in Buddhism, it does not matter. That's not the subject we're discussing today. We're discussing the greater African spirituality, to be more specific. But all of us are at different stages in terms of our development and our growth. And what I usually find is this concept of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, where people who are at one level and at one stage or at one point of their development, then they begin to take up and pick up stones and throw them down to other children who are on the other side of the road. And by so doing, we have unnecessary casualties, because it does not mean that what you understand and what you have accepted as your cardinal basis of truth, everyone else is forced, must become what I am. And if they don't become that, then they are damned and they must go to hell. I think that kind of thinking on its own kind of puts a spanner into the works and blocks the whole purpose of us growing progressively in terms of sharing information without hindrance. And as you have noticed for the past few days, I created enough chaos to last you for a lifetime when I started asking what is the name of the devil in your own African language. I got interesting answers, by the way. Some gave me some verbs of what he does. Some gave me diabolos, some gave me Satan, some gave me what. But at the end of the day, I think we can agree here just on the onset that we all could not find the name of the devil in our African languages. Problem number one. Problem number two, what is the name of Jesus, again, in our own African language? And then some call him Jesu, some call him Yesu, some call him whatever we want to call him. And again, we discovered that in African languages, again, Jesus is quite new to the continent. So we needed to find the European name that was given to him. And us being Africans, by the way, we are not interested in research. We are not interested in knowing anything more than what has been presented to us. So we have taken that definition as given and we have run ahead with it. Problem number three, when I highlighted what is the name of hell and Gehenna or Sheol in our own languages, then again, there was a whole hullabaloo and chaos in the house. As people now all of a sudden discovered they don't have hell in terms of African languages. They don't have Hades in African languages. And finally, I asked what is the name of the Bible in our African languages. And again, all hell broke loose. And I must be careful as I'm taking you with me again, that you are not all at the same space. It's one thing for you to walk up to me and say, I believe in Jesus and I'm a Christian, and that settles it for me. Well, if you are in the group that is now settled, I think I have nothing more I can say to you. As your education process has become complete and you are happy where you are, may the good Lord of grace be with you. But there are children out there, there are people out there who still don't understand how and what this Christianity and does not make sense. It does not make sense for two reasons. One, the reason that it has been taken as a dogmatic center, where one group of culture has imposed itself on a group of people and everyone else must accept it as the only way that can run and that can work on things. But if you take that as your principle, you walk up to China and you walk up to India, you may find that those cultures are actually non-Christian, yet they are running the world in terms of their technologies. So progress, and some of the poorest countries in the world, some of the most abused countries in the world, some of the most corrupt leaders in the world, both religious and political and economically, are actually Christian leaders. Yes, I've said it. I said it. Some of the most corrupt presidents that we have, they are actually Christian. Some of the most wicked thieves in Africa who are stealing our resources are not pagan. They are Christian. So the holy idea of Christianity becoming an answer and a solution to everything cannot be taken as a blanket statement. For there are people in our midst and people amongst the Christian group who have claimed to become Christian and actually have lived less than Christianity. Same thing. There are people who are rich and filthy rich, and they've used African indigenous knowledge, African witchcraft and everything else to benefit themselves at the expense of killing children and killing nature and etc., using voodoo and witchcraft and other forms, using the whole talisman things for their own destruction. It's a fact that we must talk about. And some of the most wicked people, again, are Islamic leaders who would rather be gathering millions to themselves and still be abusing the servants who are in their own houses. So I want us maybe to push this conversation to a higher platform where we are not discussing religions and which one is superior to another. But I want us to zoom in particularly and discuss African spirituality. And even so, I want to focus strictly maybe for the purpose of this presentation on our greater African people. Having said that, we need therefore to understand that the reason people become religious is not for formality. We don't become religious because we are bored in our houses. We don't become religious because we don't have friends. We don't want to become religious because we want to hear a public speaker talking. There are many professional public speakers out there. Many motivational professionals that are out there that can give you what you are looking for. I'll define it for you simply. People end up in African traditional, indigenous belief systems because they are looking for the spiritual. People end up in Islamic things, knocking their heads on the walls and knocking their heads on the floors until they have pimples on their heads there because they're trying to have access to Allah. May peace rest upon him. People have run up to churches to give away their monies and everything else, not because they don't need that money, because they are also looking for an access into spirituality. If you walk up to the praying wall in Jerusalem, you'll find these Ashkenazis, these Jews that have rolled their heads, and far be it that they are Jews, rolled their heads on the side, knocking their heads on that ancient wall, saying their prayers. It has nothing to do with prayer. They are looking for financial means. They are looking for spirituality. They are looking for common connections. People feed their lions. People feed their rats. People feed their cats, their cows. Some drink milk that they've given to the elephants, their Buddhas and their gods, for one reason again. People are looking for spirituality. The Freemasons and the Illuminatis lock each other in houses, lock up all the doors, do rituals there, whether it is human sacrifices, or it is blood, or it is covenants, or it is what, or rules of secrecy and privacy in their greater space of Freemasonry. Why? Because they are looking for economic power, and the economic power will give them political power. Political power will give them access to the people. Again, they are looking for spirituality. So let's agree right on the onset that the greatest need of any human being living on the face of the earth, it is that of being spiritual. Even the atheist who says, I don't believe in nothing. Well, don't be so much in a hurry. If you don't believe in nothing, you believe in yourself. So you can also convert yourself into your own God. But at the end of the day, you're hoping that through yourself, you can find yourself and have further understanding of yourself. And by the time you understand yourself, you may just discover that you also start believing. So those who worship the sun, those who worship the moon, those who worship the rivers and the mountains and everything else, people are looking for spirituality. Let me start off my cracking knots by pointing my gun and Nobukeri straight onto the head of the African who accepted Christianity. And we accepted Christianity on the basis that it was bringing for us solutions. Not only academic solutions and political solutions, but it was also bringing for us spiritual solutions. This God that we heard them talk about, who was able to open up the seas, who was able to make manna fall from heaven, who was able to have water from the rock, who was able to make people march around the city and it collapsed, who was able to touch the blind and they can see, put his ears on the ears of the deaf and they can hear, and etc. And all those who are hungry, he broke bread and he fed them. And that gospel on its own was exciting and is exciting. Why? Because it is bringing solutions to the African person who is struggling at various levels. And Christianity therefore comes around with these seeming solutions. The most embarrassing thing that I should admit as a minister of the church for the past 33 years, it is that we have a church that is full of doctrines. It has a form of godliness, but denies the power of the very gospel itself. For if we're still functioning in the unction, let me speak like a theologian now. If we're still functioning in the unction of the apostolic faith, where handkerchiefs were healing, shadows were healing, words were spoken, visions were happening. Those that were in false prophets were identified. Those that were demon possessed were identified, and healing was brought to the people. If we were practicing that kind of Christianity, there was no need for this program to run. But we have remained with a system that looks like it is godly. When you get closer to the system and say, can you perform in the wavelength at which your God wants to perform, you may just find that we actually believe in God. We believe in Yahweh. We believe in Allah. We believe in everything else except that He does not have the resources. He does not have the solutions that we want. Then when He cannot perform, we come around again and say, He cannot perform because you don't believe. He cannot perform because He says, wait. He says, I don't want. Or He says, I will do it in the future. We all come up with beautiful theological questions. I want us to, for this afternoon, to do something that is very, very simple. Very simple. Please sit up straight and put on your thinking caps as I take you through a small little parable. I want to call this the Parable of Spirituality 101, according to Maponga J. The Parable of Christianity 101, according to Maponga J. So all of us, we have these small little gadgets we hold in our hands, which we call cell phones, or we call them mobile phones. These small little pocket phones. For you to have a phone in your hand, it must, for it to function, it must have a few things that are in place. And before you go very far, every good phone that you have, before we even start talking about the phone, we need to start talking about something like this. And let me for this afternoon, just maybe take my seat nicely, and I will sit like an old man who is teaching parables to young children, so that even the youngest amongst us can begin to understand. Before we talk about cell phones, we need to talk about something like this. This is power. This is a power cable that I need to put here on my desk here at the bottom for me to get power. And that's for another day. I can take you through the power process. That here in my house, there's power here, 3-pin plug on the wall. That is taken from my distributor in the garage, where there is my DB box, my distribution box that is in the garage there for my house and the utensils that I use in my house. But that DB box is also connected to the transformers that are outside, which are like for a certain amount of streets. And from the transformers there, you also have the transformers that are in the city that have bigger voltage. From the transformers in the city, you have the transformers that are with Eskom. And Eskom then has the power station. Now, the power station power cannot function here in its voltage, because that power station will burn not only the phone, will burn me and burn the house and burn all the neighbors that are here, because that power is too much power. So what you do is that you step down the power from the power station to the transformers, to the smaller transformers, to the street transformer, to the house transformer, to the house socket. And the house socket, I must still put another adapter that reduces the 230 volts there into the gadget itself. And the gadget, some of the gadgets actually have another transformer that further steps down that current so that actually it can function right here. Now, many of us, when we are talking about spirituality, we think that it is a plug and go, where you want to walk into a power station and say, Lord, please plug into me, plug into me. If the Lord plugs into you, if the universe plugs into you, you will burst, you will die, you will collapse from pain and anguish that you cannot measure. Too much knowledge brings too much trouble. That's why Moses, when he wanted to see God, God looks at Moses and says, no man can see me, no man has seen me and has lived. Therefore, you need to understand that there is a step down of power, there's a step down of currency to a level that a human being can use. Those of you who have read the Bible and other books, and those of you who are functioning in the spiritual world, you know very well when you engage in a spiritual space, you cannot walk away with all your strength. That is a high level that consumes lots of emotion, lots of your spiritual energy. The pastors who pray and work for people, whether it is witch doctors or sangomas or traditional healers who work in the people's things and stuff, when you finish doing some of those things, you are actually tired and exhausted and finished. Why? Because your body can take only so much currency in terms of spiritual energy. And after that, you must log out again and replenish the body. What am I saying? Without the physical body, you cannot begin to access the spiritual things. And the body must be at a functional level where it can access a certain amount of voltage in the spiritual realm for you to function. If you understand that, please show me some thumbs. Then I can fly out. So we have power in the supernatural. We have power in the spiritual. We have power in the universe that the human beings can tap into and control the elements that are on earth. It is through that our ancient fathers were able to call the rain. The Aborigines are still doing it, and some African people still do it, where they can walk up to the mountains, walk up to the rivers, and when they are there, they can make some certain prayers, make some certain offerings, speak into the skies and speak into the clouds after having done some certain preparations. And when they speak to the elements respond. Now, I want you to understand something. Spirituality is a science. It's a science. It's as good as a laboratory. Good as a laboratory. Where when you take this substance and you put them together, boom, something else happens. That's science. But because African spirituality has not yet been taken to the test tube and there's lots of secrecy around it, it is still being called witchcraft. But when you take witchcraft into the science lab, then it becomes a science. If you look backwards, you may find that gunpowder used to be called witchcraft powder because they would cause things to happen until someone found the technology and they made gunpowder into bullets. Now, bam, it's no longer witchcraft. It has now become a science. So we need to understand that the voltage that is there in the spiritual world, it is plenty and it is neutral. Please follow me very carefully. The energy and the correspondence of power that is in the spiritual world, in the universe, it is neutral. I know that's hard to swallow. In its neutrality, your intentions as the one who is accessing it gives it the positive or the negative. Therefore, the spiritual world is a neutral space. But when you enter here, the question is, what do you want? And some of us want revenge. Some of us want money. Some of us want whatever you want. When you enter into that space and you're withdrawing what you want, whether through prayer or through upahla or through whatever rituals that you are doing, the question is, when you are tapping into the spiritual world, what is it that you're looking for? And that which you are looking for gives what you are doing either positivity or negativity. I want to admit even now, there are people who pray, but their prayers are as wicked as witchcraft. Yes, you heard me well. Because there's no way you can be praying and praying for people to die. You know, you're praying for people to die. You want to kill people. Now, who prays for people to die? You want your enemies to die. No, man, they must not die. They must repent. In fact, they must live long to see you succeed. And they must live long. Dying is too quick, man. Killing people is not too nice. People who hate you must wait and see you succeed and feel the pain of your success. I think that's a better way of living with people. So you firstly need to understand that there is power in spirituality. And by the time I'm coming to the gadget itself, I want to break through some certain few concepts. I'm speaking at a level, and I hope that the Spirit will be able to download this into your own spirit so that you understand it. Therefore, you have a handset, which you must go and select for yourself a good handset. Inside this handset, the first thing we can talk about is the battery. Does this handset have enough power? Does it have enough power to access whatever it wants to access? Those of you who are Christians, you may want to fast. Those of you who are traditionalists, you may also want to fast. Those of you who are whatever, there is a preparation in terms of charging the human body to engage in spiritual things. Reduction of salt, reduction of oils, reduction of meat, adequate sleep, settling up your relationships, placing your mind. And these principles are universal, from Buddhism to Hare Krishna to Islam to Christian to African indigenous churches. Preparation for spirituality is the same. Put that between your ears. There is no one who can say our method is better than the other. Good sleep, good food, anger must be put aside, cleanliness, focus, and then you prepare yourself for the spiritual crossover. So it's not a place where you run in with your legs full of mud and everything else. Please, Lord, help me, help me. Even the Bible says, at a moment of prayer, if you remember that you have wronged someone or someone is not in good books with you, leave everything on the ground. Go back home, settle your differences, and then you can come back here and proceed with your worship services. Unfortunately, our churches are full of criminals who don't even want to pay debt. I'll get worked up here and start talking about another church which is still owing me. We are still owing debt, and they don't want to pay the debt. Yet they are in a hurry to go and pray. And they know while they are praying that they are not in good books with someone else. There is nowhere where you are running in terms of spirituality when your relationships are not yet fixed. I think from that angle, that's where African indigenous spirituality kicks in. That before anything must be done, we want to look at you. They want to look at you and ask the question, are you in good books with yourself? Are you in good books with your husband? Are you in good books with your wife? Did you marry her correctly? Are you in good books with your father? Are you in good books with your mother? Are you in good books with your neighbor? Are you in good books with this? And after all these good books have been ticked, then your things will open up. Many times than often, people think of it as witchcraft. When they say, you wronged your mother or you wronged your father, please go back and fix whatever must be fixed. No, my father has died, my mother has died. What must I do? Then they say, please make a sacrifice and communicate and tell them that you are sorry. The issue is not in the sacrifice. The issue is in you being able to look back in the past, look at them in their absence, and actually emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically being able to ask for forgiveness for the crimes that you committed and you never confessed for them. In some certain case, buy a blanket and go and put it there. Do this and do this. Many people miss me when I speak like that. I am not saying there is power in those things. The power is in you being able to face up with a problem that was done in the past, which you were not able to fix. And the present moment allows you to visit some of those environments and untangle some of those knots that have been tied in your life. So do you have enough battery in yourself? Do you have enough current in yourself so that your small little tool can begin to work? I'll not have enough time to go through everything else. Number two comes the issue of the motherboard. Yes, you didn't hear me well. The issue of the motherboard. I said I'm taking you through parables of Maponga J in 2020. Let me speak like Yeshua himself, even though my name is Yeshua. Let me speak like Yeshua in parables so that even the young children can understand us. You have the battery, you have charged your phone. The next bus stop is the motherboard. The motherboard. You didn't hear me? Motherboard. Yes, I've just said it. The motherboard speaks to various components that are in your phone here. Small little things that you may not even be able to see. You may not even know what they work for and what they function. All you care about is just sending an SMS and an emoji to your wife, to your husband. I love you. That's the end of it. But I want to tell you the truth that motherboard controls this cell phone. The small little pieces, all of them work together. They join together. They connect with each other. They connect signals. They have all various types of informations that are on them. When you see a phone as a unit like this, there are thousands of technologies and things that are inside this thing that makes it well to function. Am I talking to your body? Now do you understand where I'm coming from? Am I talking to your body? That your body is a motherboard with small little transistors here, small little pieces we call DNA here and there. From your father's side, what did you inherit? From your mother's side, what did you inherit? From your grandfather's side, what did you inherit? From your grandmother's side, what did you inherit? From your grand, what did you inherit? From your aunties, what did you inherit? You may find that your diseases, your problems, your complexion, your height, your color, your tribe, all those things put together, they're actually part of your motherboard. Now, many Christians don't care about the motherboard. They just want WhatsApp. They want WhatsApp. They want Twitter. But hey, Mwanesh, before we harass you, there's no way your phone can work correctly if you don't have a full understanding of what is behind this cell phone to work. And those who know more about the motherboard most likely can tell you the capacity and the potential of that phone. Many pastors and many indigenous traditional healers have crossed over into that place where they can tap into the spiritual world and look into your motherboard and see what elements are there, and they come back to you and say, you need to fix that and that and that and that. That becomes the spiritual repair center, where you are not taught about others more than you are taught about yourself as to what is inside you. Number 3, after the motherboard, then we move slightly further to what I want to call the software. Yes, you heard me well. Software. Now, here it becomes more deep and complex, because the software now we are talking about the quality of programming that has been put in your phone, which increases or reduces its functionality. So some of you are running on Microsoft 1.1. Some of you are running on Microsoft 5.2. Some of you are now running on Windows. They're different. Same handset. If you load a version here, a 1.0 version, this is a iPhone 10 Plus. If you load a 1.1 software, you reduce a 10.1 function, 10.1 function phone to operate at the level of a 1.1 function. Some of us, therefore, are running on a software that has not upgraded us, but downgraded us. If the African was able, through his software, to communicate with the rain, to speak to the wind, to speak to the trees, and tame animals like King Haile Selassie, having lions as pets in his house, the technology to tame a lion into a dog, and then you become a Christian. Our forefathers, some of them used to swim in rivers that are full of crocodiles, and they would put on some certain substance on them. It's not witchcraft, it's science. Science. Because when you put on a certain substance on you, certain animals can smell you in a certain way, and they no longer identify you as food. Understanding the intricacies of those sciences, for me, that's a mystery that we are all scared of, and we are in a hurry to call and condemn it. They already knew how to do these things. I know people in my own village who can walk up to a beehive full of honey with nothing on them, and they walk up in there and they blow away the bees, put their hand where the honey is, and remove all the honey that they want, close up the place, and walk back home without having one sting from those bees. The technology of harvesting honey without, there is something that they do which allows them to do that. I know people who can go hunting, and when they are in the bush, they will find what they are looking for. There is a technology that you use. Right now, you go hunting with your perfumes and everything else. Immediately, you are in the bush. All the animals can smell your perfume, and the animals run away. You spend 16 weeks hunting, and you can't catch anything. And you say, maybe I have bad luck. You simply don't know how to operate in the bush. And these technologies are lying in the traditional space. Unfortunately, a big blanket has been put on everything that is traditional, that is evil, when in fact some of those things were critical scientific survival techniques for the greater African and her children. So you need a software on yourself. So when you flash out everything and say, now I am Muslim, okay? I believe in Allah, Allah Akbar, and now believe in Muhammad. Whether you're African, you're American, you're Australian, your software that you are now running with is now at the level of the Islamic religion that you now believe in. Whether it is an upgrade or it's a downgrade, is not for me. But whatever software you have put in yourself then allows you to function at a certain level and allows your transistors on your motherboard to communicate in a certain way. Some of them might actually be rendered useless. Some of them might end up with more pressure to perform. If you say, I'm nothing, I'm throwing away everything, I am now becoming a Christian, then the software that you have taken into your system must communicate with your system to allow you to function like a Christian. Wes, they say, I'm a Christian. No, but I'm not just a Christian. I'm now a Seventh-day Adventist. You further streamline your software to a specific denomination and you function within that system. It means that everything else that is outside there no longer becomes material. Your worldview, your software is now tuned to Adventism, and you're going to function and operate at an Adventist level. So goes for Catholics, Hail Mary. So goes for Pentecostals. So goes for Charismatics. So goes for Episcopals. So goes for Lutherans. So goes for Methodists. But the quality of the software that you load onto your system either makes you function optimum or it makes you work at a far much lesser frequency than initially intended. Level number 4 becomes the issue of the network. Now, getting interesting here. The network now in South Africa, here we have MTN, we have Vodacom, we have Cell C, we have Virgin, we have Telecom, we have many networks. You choose the network that you want to work with. Simple. You choose your network. So you may have the correct handset, fully charged, software installed, but if you don't have a SIM card which gives you access to a network, you may just discover that there is very little you can do. So beautiful phones without a SIM card is a dummy. I want to challenge particularly my Christian friends who are out there that you have not yet considered the issue of putting correct SIM cards in yourself so that you can have correct reception. So we have phones, we have batteries, we have motherboards, we have software. Do you have the SIM card? By the SIM card, then I'm talking about, do you choose a particular network that you want to work with? How do you want to work in this space? I can hear some depth there, but let me keep it for another day. The quality of the network that you choose, again, some networks work better in town. Some networks don't have network at all. They call them a network, but the network in Nigeria, you have Etisalat, Nelstat and everything else, and Virgin and MTN. You can choose a good phone and end up choosing a wrong network that does not have enough coverage. Right now, as I'm looking at you, the history and the library of the white man is in books that are behind me. The history of the black man is in the spiritual world. What am I saying? If you find out a spiritual person who knows exactly what they're doing without you sacrificing and killing anything, you simply say, I want to know who am I and where am I coming from. The man will look at you and say, your name is Maponga Joshua. I see a man by the name of Lazarus. That's your father. I see Lazarus getting married to Slindeni. That's your mother. Slindeni is born by Masbanda. That's your grandmother. Masbanda is born by Mafa. Mafa and Jamela. Jamela ukoko kasoneni on your father's side. I see him, Lazarus, born of Marara. Marara, who is born of Maponga. Maponga, who is born from Mchena. Mchena, who is born from Derere. Derere, born from Zibo. Zibo, born from Nokwara. Nokwara, born from Nduma. Nduma is born from Chapinduka. Chapinduka is born from Toveda. Toveda is born from Murenga. Murenga is born from, and 15 generations later, this information is available. But the problem when people are accessing this information, they only want to access it for witchcraft purposes. So you need to choose the type of network that you can connect with. And as I said earlier on, some networks are not universal. Some networks can only work in the mighty Jesus' name. And the network stops right there. But even after the network has worked with the 10 lepers, the network then says, please go show yourselves to the priest. In other words, in as much as you are sorted here, please proceed even further to get other things sorted on the other side. But many of us are limited because once we have this small little coverage, which only covers the radius of our houses, we think that there's nothing else happening outside there. So choose the correct network. And when you are using your network, that's where we begin to part ways. Because each network has its own passwords. Star hash 1234 star hash 111 star hash 121 star 100 star. You cannot use Microsoft, you cannot use Vodacom passwords to access MTN. And you cannot use Virgin to access Telcom. Each network has its own passwords to access that. That's why Yeshua says, no one comes to the Father except through me. That network works through him in that fashion. That you need to understand how that path is paved. And if you want to access that, then this is how you access it. Then after the network, the last one that I'll give you is then your positioning. You may have the correct phone, good software, good motherboard, good SIM card, good signal. But when you move sometimes, even with a good signal, you need to start finding out, do I stand here? Do I stand there? Outside the house, up the mountain, signals are better. The higher you go, the cooler it becomes. African spirituality, therefore, is a complicated science. It is not only a complicated science in terms of its knowledge system, but in African spirituality. As I said the other day, the belt that you see on my head is not just a beautiful belt in terms of a hat. You have mathematical formulas that are actually put here, as complex as the pyramid itself. It is preserved in African knowledge systems. Those of you who are into paints and technology, the paints are already here, which is a library of technology on its own. Spirituality is embedded in there, in art. Mathematics is captured right there. Diet is captured right there. Relationships are captured right there. Technologies are captured right there. Therefore, to begin to understand African spirituality, I want to challenge you and say, start not just buying African art, but understanding and looking into that art. You may be looking into the library of the past with unthinkable resources and materials that are found in there. From this simple hat I am putting on right there on my head, diet is drafted right there. The green foods, the red foods, the blue foods, the white foods, and everything else. And each day of the week, which one must I be working with? It's all there, written, preserved in art. Because our forefathers could not write books, it does not mean that they left us nothing. They left us these pieces of art which constantly remain as a library full of information. I'll take maybe 1-2 lectures later on and maybe start to break down what do I mean when I say that our art form begins to give us access into our spirituality. Because without correct diet, without correct health, without correctly understanding where you are coming from in terms of your sciences, you might be heading for a future that is totally confusing. African spirituality, therefore, I want to teach all of us. If you know how to use your cell phone, while your cell phone is on the charger, you must also be on another charger, charging yourself spiritually. Make sure that your battery is full. Double check on your motherboard. Double check on your software. Double check on your SIM card. Double check on your signal. The rest of it, another day I'll come and then I'll start showing you. Even when you have everything in place, do you know how to operate your own cell phone so that you can have maximum mileage out of it? Many of us are beautiful African bodies with everything that we need installed in it, virus-free. But out of our own intentions, we have removed the original software from the manufacturer and installed some fake Chinese software from Europe and beyond. And our function has been reduced to that of slaves. Africa, arise. Discover who you are. You are working below your maximum. You have reduced your capacity to perform by reducing the quality of your software. And when we begin to understand how best we can function and make the best out of our environment, the solutions we're looking for are locked right inside us. Who am I? I'm a watcher from the future, living with you in the present, with solutions from the past. Maponga J, I'm signing out. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon. Until we meet you again here on your African channel. Slowly learning, slowly growing, until we become what the original manufacturer had in place. It was never a mistake to make us black and African. I'm an African, and I'm not ashamed of it. And until I reach my full potential, I need to flush out all the fake software and reinstall original software. Maponga J from Farmers of Thought channel here on your afternoon drive, broadcasting from Johannesburg, South Africa, on your African channel, discussing African science, African politics, and African culture, music, and art and spirituality. Until we meet you again, enjoy yourself and have yourself a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Until we see you, bye-bye. Come on. Peaceful.